The cleaning lady kissed the millionaire, and his twin daughters exposed the truth. The golden light of late afternoon spilled through the tall windows of the Andrade mansion, painting the marble floors in warm tones. Julia Mendez, 25, knelt on the ground, her hands raw from scrubbing. She had just spilled a small amount of cleaning solution on the Persian carpet, a mistake so tiny, yet it felt like her entire world was about to collapse. "Look what you've done, Julia. You ruined this Persian carpet." The sharp voice of Estella Vasquez sliced through the silence like broken glass. She stood at the doorway, draped in a navy blue dress that shimmered under the chandelier. Every detail about her screamed wealth and power, her hair perfectly styled, her diamond earrings sparkling, yet her eyes burned with cruelty. Julia's throat tightened. I'm so sorry, ma'am. It was an accident, I swear. I'll fix it." Her trembling hands pressed against the dark stain as if sheer desperation could erase it. Estella folded her arms, her lips curling into a bitter smile. "You'll scrub for hours and it still won't come out. Maybe you did it on purpose, just to irritate me." Julia's chest ached. She needed this job more than anything. Her father's medicine, the rent, food on the table, all depended on her. Humiliation was something she could endure if it meant survival. She lowered her head, trying to hold back tears. But suddenly, the sound of running footsteps broke the tension. Two voices shouted at once. "Don't yell at Julia. She didn't do anything wrong." Two little girls appeared at the top of the grand staircase and darted down, their hair bouncing as they ran. They were Aina and Sophia Andrade, 9-year-old identical twins, with big brown eyes full of fire, cheeks flushed, and the courage of lions in their small bodies. Aina planted herself in front of Julia, spreading her arms like a shield. "You're being mean, Aunt Estella." Sophia crossed her arms and glared. "Julia is the best maid in the whole world. She cleans, she tells us stories, and she always makes us laugh. Don't talk to her like that." Estella's expression shifted instantly. Her cold rage melted into fake sweetness. She bent down slightly, her voice dripping with syrup. "Oh, my darlings, you misunderstood. I wasn't yelling. I was just teaching Julia how to take better care of the house. That's all." But the twins didn't move. They weren't fooled. Anna's little chin lifted stubbornly. "We don't like when people yell at Julia." Sophia added firmly, "If you keep yelling, we'll tell Daddy." For the first time that evening, Estella faltered. She forced a laugh, but deep inside, her blood boiled. These girls adored Julia too much, and that affection was becoming dangerous. The heavy wooden door of the mansion creaked open, and the sound of polished shoes echoed through the hallway. Miguel Andrade, 34, had just returned from the office. His tall frame filled the doorway of the living room as he loosened his tie, his dark hair slightly tousled from the rain outside. Unlike most wealthy men, his presence wasn't intimidating. It was gentle, steady. His eyes, though tired from endless meetings, still carried warmth. "What's going on here?" His voice was calm but firm, a question that silenced the entire room. He looked around. Julia, still kneeling on the carpet, her face pale with fear. Estella, standing tall in her expensive dress, her lips curled in mock patience. And Aina and Sophia, side by side, their small arms locked around Julia's shoulders like loyal guards. Estella was the first to speak. Her tone softened instantly, as if nothing had happened. "Oh, Miguel, darling, it's nothing serious. Just a little accident with the carpet. I was giving Julia some instructions." She smiled sweetly, pretending to be the picture of elegance and reason. But Miguel's gaze lingered on Julia. He saw the way her hands trembled, how she avoided his eyes as if ashamed. It wasn't just a small accident. He could feel it. Something had happened. "Estella," he said slowly, his voice carrying quiet authority. "Accidents happen. No need to make it into something bigger than it is." The twins seized the opportunity. Aina tugged on her father's sleeve. "See, Daddy? Julia didn't do anything wrong. It was just a little spill." Sophia chimed in, her voice rising with emotion. "She always takes care of us in the house. She's not bad. She's our friend." Miguel crouched down, his eyes meeting Julia's. "Is that true? Was it just an accident?" Julia's eyes filled with tears she fought hard to hold back. "Yes, sir. I'm so sorry. I'll be more careful next time." Before Miguel could reply, Ana hugged Julia's waist tightly. "Daddy, you can't let anyone be mean to her. And you can't let her cry," Sophia added stubbornly. For a brief moment, Miguel smiled. His daughter's loyalty was undeniable, and it touched him deeply. But when he looked up, he caught Estella's expression. The tightness of her jaw, the fire in her eyes carefully hidden behind her polite smile. That look unsettled him. Something dangerous was brewing. At night, the mansion glittered with quiet luxury. Crystal glasses clinked in the dining room while rain tapped against the tall windows. Estella sat at the table across from Miguel, her perfect posture and flawless smile masking the storm brewing inside her. She watched the way Miguel leaned down to listen to the twins' endless chatter about their day. She noticed how his tired eyes lit up every time Ana or Sophia mentioned Julia, how Julia helped us with homework, or Julia made us pancakes. Each word was a dagger. Estella swirled her wine glass slowly, her knuckles white with pressure. For 10 years she had waited, always at Miguel's side, always hoping he would finally see her as the woman meant to stand beside him. And yet, a maid, a girl from the other side of town, was stealing the affection that should have been hers. Later that evening, after dinner, Julia gathered her cleaning supplies. She tucked the bottles and rags neatly inside the small closet near the kitchen. The lock was rusty, the shelves old, but she always kept everything tidy. She didn't notice Estella's sharp eyes following her every move. "Good night, princesses," Julia whispered tenderly as Ana and Sophia rushed to hug her legs before she left. "Dream of nice things, Julia," Sophia said. "Don't let the rain make you sad," Ana added. Julia smiled, her heart warming despite the exhaustion. She stepped into the stormy night, her umbrella trembling in the wind as she walked to the bus stop. 2 buses. Almost an hour of travel, but she didn't complain. This job was her blessing. At home, in a tiny 2-room apartment in a modest neighborhood, her father Joe was waiting in his worn-out armchair, coughing softly. "Philha, how was work today?" he asked, his voice weak but warm. "Everything's fine, Pai. Don't worry." She kissed his forehead, hiding the humiliation she had endured. But at the mansion, Estella's mind was racing. She couldn't stand one more day watching Julia win the love of the twins, and worse, the quiet admiration of Miguel. She needed a plan, a way to destroy Julia's reputation once and for all. A cruel smile curved her lips as an idea formed. The next morning, while Miguel was already at the office, Estella walked gracefully down the grand staircase, holding a small velvet box. Inside, a diamond bracelet sparkled, valuable enough to cause outrage, yet small enough to hide. She opened the cleaning closet, her eyes narrowing at the neatly stacked rags and detergents. Then, with deliberate slowness, she slipped the bracelet into the shadows of the lowest shelf. "There," she whispered to herself. "Let's see how long it takes for the saintly Julia to fall from grace." She closed the door softly, her heart racing with dark satisfaction. The trap was set. The next morning smelled of fresh coffee and polished wood. The mansion was calm, sunlight spilling across the living room rug, the same rug Julia had scrubbed in tears the day before. Julia had just arrived, her uniform spotless, her hair neatly tied back, determination in her eyes. "Today will be better," she told herself, clutching the cleaning bucket. She greeted Estella politely. "Good morning, Donna Estella. Did you sleep well?" Estella smiled, her eyes gleaming with venom hidden under sweetness. "Oh yes, wonderfully. It's such a relief to wake up knowing the house is in good hands." Julia bowed her head, grateful, though something in Estella's tone made her uneasy. She walked toward the laundry, grabbing cloths and soap, unaware that her destiny was already sealed. 2 hours passed. The twins were upstairs drawing, the house quiet except for the sound of Julia scrubbing tiles. That's when Estella struck. "Julia!" Julia, come quickly." The urgency in her voice made Julia drop the sponge and rush to the living room. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw Estella clutching her wrist dramatically, eyes wide with panic. "My bracelet! My diamond bracelet! It's gone!" Julia blinked in confusion. "Bracelet? I don't know anything about a bracelet, ma'am." Estella sighed heavily, her performance flawless. "It's my grandmother's heirloom, worth a fortune. I always keep it safe, and now it's missing. I must have misplaced it. Oh, how careless of me." She pressed her hand to her forehead in exaggerated despair. "Don't worry, Donna Estella," Julia said earnestly. "I'll help you look for it. We'll find it together." "Good idea," Estella replied, leading the way. These things often end up in unexpected places. They searched the living room, the study, even under cushions. Estella acted frantic, but her eyes gleamed every time they moved closer to the kitchen. Finally, she sighed, shaking her head. "Julia, where do you keep your things? Your rags, your belongings?" "In the cleaning closet, ma'am," Julia answered innocently. "Then let's check there. Who knows? Maybe it fell while you were working." Julia nodded quickly, hurrying toward the closet. She opened the squeaky door, the smell of soap and bleach filling the air. She reached inside to move some bottles aside, and then froze. Her fingers touched something cold, metallic. She pulled it out slowly. A sparkling diamond bracelet, glittering in the morning light. Her breath caught in her throat. She dropped it as if it had burned her. What is this? I've never seen this before." "I swear I didn't," Estella gasped, clutching her chest like a shocked actress on stage. "My bracelet. Here? In your closet?" "No. No, please. It's not what it looks like." Julia's voice cracked, her body trembling. And then, footsteps. The front door opened. Miguel's voice echoed from the hallway. "Hello? My meeting was canceled. I thought I'd come back early." He stepped into the kitchen, his eyes moving from Estella's triumphant face to Julia's pale, tear-streaked one, and finally to the bracelet lying on the tiles between them. The trap had sprung. Miguel's footsteps slowed as he entered the kitchen. The atmosphere was thick with tension, so heavy he could almost touch it. He looked from Estella to Julia, then down to the bracelet glittering against the kitchen tiles. What is going on here?" His voice was calm, but his eyes sharpened like steel. Estella was quick to seize the stage. She pressed her hand to her chest, feigning sorrow. "Miguel, I didn't want you to find out like this. But look, my bracelet, the one my grandmother left me. I found it in Julia's closet." Julia shook her head violently, her tears spilling. "No, that's not true." "I didn't take it, sir. I swear on my father's life. I've never even touched that bracelet before today." Her voice cracked with desperation. Her knees felt weak, but she forced herself to stand tall, eyes locked on Miguel, begging him to see her truth. Before he could respond, tiny footsteps thundered down the stairs. "Daddy, what's happening?" Aina and Sophia burst into the kitchen, their eyes immediately finding Julia's tear-streaked face. They ran to her side, clutching her hands. "Why are you crying?" Sophia asked, her little face full of worry. "Did Aunt Estella hurt you again?" Aina demanded, glaring at the older woman. Estella crouched slightly, her fake sympathy dripping with venom. "Girls, please. This is not about me. It's about your Julia. She's been keeping something that doesn't belong to her." The twins turned, their eyes wide with shock as they noticed the bracelet on the floor. "No," Aina cried. "She didn't steal it. She would never do that. That's a lie." "Julia isn't a thief," Sophia shouted, hugging Julia's waist tighter. Julia's heart shattered at their defense. She knelt down, cupping their faces. "Princesses, listen to me. I didn't take it, I promise you. But sometimes adults don't believe the truth right away." Her voice trembled, but she refused to let them see her break completely. Miguel rubbed his temples, his mind torn in two. For 2 years, Julia had worked for him, loyal, kind, honest. She had cared for his daughters as if they were her own. And yet, the bracelet was there, in her closet. The evidence was undeniable. "Julia," he said at last, his voice heavy, "I don't know how to explain this, but I can't ignore what I've seen. I'm sorry. I'll have to let you go." The words stabbed deeper than any blade. Julia's face went pale, her lips trembling. She wanted to scream, to beg him to believe her, but pride held her back. She swallowed hard, nodding. "I understand, sir. If that's what you think is best." "No, Daddy," Ana wailed. "You can't. She didn't do anything." Sophia sobbed, gripping Julia's arms like their lives depended on it. Miguel's heart ached at the sight of his daughter's tears. But Estella's voice echoed behind him, cold and sharp. "Miguel, think about the example you're setting. If you excuse this, what lesson will your daughters learn?" He closed his eyes in pain, then gently pulled Ana and Sophia into his arms, separating them from Julia. "Enough. Julia has to leave." Julia bent down one last time, pressing her forehead to each twin's small cheek. Her tears mixed with theirs. "Be strong, my loves. Don't forget. You are the most special girls in the world." "No," they cried in unison, clinging to her hands. But Miguel's arms tightened around them, holding them back as Julia picked up her worn-out bag. Her steps toward the door felt heavier than stones. At the threshold, she turned once more, whispering, "Take care of them, Doctor. Miguel. They deserve all the love in the world." And with that, she stepped out into the rain, the door closing behind her like the end of a chapter. Inside, Estella stood by the window, her lips curving into a smile as she watched Julia waiting for the bus at the corner, her small figure trembling, clutching a plastic bag with everything she owned. Perfect, Estella thought. The problem is gone. But upstairs, two little girls cried into each other's arms, whispering a promise. "We'll bring her back, no matter what it takes." The mansion was no longer the same. Where laughter once echoed in the hallways, silence now lingered like a heavy shadow. Ana and Sophia dragged their feet through the grand rooms, their sketchbooks abandoned, their dolls untouched. Even the golden chandeliers seemed dimmer without the sparkle of their smiles. At every meal, they sat at the table pushing food around their plates. "Eat, girls," Miguel urged gently, worry etched into his face. "We're not hungry," Ana whispered, staring at her lap. "Food doesn't taste good without Julia," Sophia added, her voice trembling. Miguel sighed, folding his napkin. He had imagined the sadness would fade after a few days. But 2 weeks had passed, and the twins only grew paler, quieter, more withdrawn. Their laughter had vanished. Their eyes carried the weight of betrayal. At night, he heard them through the walls, muffled sobs, whispered prayers. "God, please bring Julia back. Please let her come tuck us in again." Each word broke his heart. Doubt crept in, whispering cruelly, "What if I was wrong? What if she was innocent?" But then the image of the bracelet in the closet replayed like a cursed memory, silencing his thoughts. Meanwhile, across town, Julia lived her own kind of sorrow. She now worked as a night cleaner in a shopping mall. From 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., she mopped endless floors under fluorescent lights, the smell of disinfectant burning her nose. Her hands cracked from bleach, her back ached, and her pay was barely enough to cover rent and her father's medicine. Still, every morning when she returned home, Joe waited in his worn armchair. "How was your night, Phila?" Julia forced a smile, hiding her exhaustion. "Quiet, Pai. Just cleaning, as always." She never told him about the tears she shed in the empty bathroom stalls, how she leaned against the tiles at 3 a.m., clutching her chest, remembering the sound of Ana and Sophia's laughter. She never admitted that each time she passed the children's clothing store in the mall, her heart squeezed with longing. Back at the mansion, Estella became a constant presence. She appeared with baskets of pastries, offered to help with homework, sat beside Miguel during dinner as if she already belonged. "I know it's hard," she said one evening, laying a hand on his arm, "but children forget quickly. Soon they'll stop asking about her." But Ana and Sophia didn't forget. They refused to sit near Estella. They ignored her offers of cookies and bedtime stories. When she kissed their heads, they wiped their hair with their sleeves. "You'll get used to me," Estella whispered once, her smile brittle. But upstairs, with the door closed, the twins whispered to each other, their eyes fierce. "She lied. She tricked Daddy. We'll prove it." And in their small, determined hearts, the battle lines were drawn. It was a gray Thursday afternoon. The rain tapped lightly on the windows, and the mansion was unusually quiet. Miguel was shut away in his office, lost in work, while Estella lingered in the guest bedroom, pacing back and forth with her phone pressed to her ear. Ana and Sophia, curious and restless, tiptoed down the hallway. They were supposed to be reading, but the sound of Estella's muffled voice made them stop. The door was ajar, just enough for them to peek inside. Estella's back was to them, her elegant dress swaying as she gestured with one hand. Her voice was sharp, dripping with arrogance. "It was so easy," she laughed softly into the phone. "I slipped the bracelet into that maid's closet myself." Miguel believed it instantly. The poor girl never stood a chance. Ana's hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide. Sophia grabbed her twin's wrist, squeezing hard. "Did she just say that?" Estella continued, lowering her voice but not enough to hide the venom. "Now that Julia's out of the picture, it's only a matter of time before Miguel realizes I'm the only woman who belongs at his side. 10 years I've waited, but it was worth it." Ana's heart pounded so hard she thought Estella would hear it. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but not of sadness, of fury. She lied. She did this to Julia. The twins exchanged a look, an unspoken promise passing between them. They couldn't burst into the room, not yet. Adults never believe children without proof. Quiet as shadows, they slipped back down the hall, holding their breath until they were safe in their bedroom. Once the door was closed, Ana whispered fiercely, "You heard her, right?" Sophia nodded, her little fists clenched. She admitted everything. She tricked Daddy. Ana's voice shook with determination. "We have to prove it. We can't just tell him. He won't believe us." Sophia's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll find proof. Somehow, we'll show him the truth." The two sisters hugged tightly, their small hearts pounding with courage. They were only 9, but in that moment, they weren't just children. They were protectors, defenders of the woman who had loved them like a mother. And Estella, oblivious, kept plotting in the next room, unaware that her cruel secret was no longer safe. For days, Ana and Sophia whispered under the blankets at night, their little voices weaving a plan in the dark. They knew the truth now, but truth without proof was useless. Adults didn't just believe children. They needed evidence. They needed witnesses. On Saturday morning, while Miguel read the newspaper on the veranda, Ana tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, can we go to the mall today?" Miguel raised an eyebrow. "The mall? What for?" "To get milkshakes," Sophia chimed in, her eyes wide and innocent. "And maybe buy something special." He smiled softly. It had been weeks since his daughters had asked for anything other than Julia. Maybe this was their way of moving forward. "All right," he agreed. "This afternoon we'll go." Moments later, the girls sneaked away to Estella's room. She was painting her nails at the vanity, humming. "Tia Estella," Ana said sweetly, forcing a smile. "We're going to the mall today with Daddy. Do you want to come with us?" Estella's heart leapt. Finally, the girls are warming up to me. "Of course, my loves," she said, slipping on a pair of pearl earrings. What a wonderful idea. But she had no idea she had just stepped into their trap. Underscore that afternoon, the mall was buzzing with life. Shoppers carried bags, children tugged on their parents' hands, and the smell of popcorn floated through the air. Miguel sat at a food court table with the twins and Estella, flipping through his phone while waiting for their milkshakes. Ana scanned the crowd nervously. "Do you see her?" She whispered to Sophia. "Not yet," Sophia replied, her eyes darting everywhere. And then, there she was. Across the food court, Julia emerged in her cleaning uniform, carrying a bucket and a mop. She looked thinner, her face pale under the harsh mall lights. Dark circles framed her eyes, but when she paused to wipe her forehead, there was still that quiet dignity about her. Aina's breath caught. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "It's now," Aina whispered. Before Miguel or Estella could stop them, the twins bolted from the table. "Julia!" Their voices rang through the food court. Heads turned. Shoppers paused. And Julia, startled, nearly dropped her bucket. When she looked up and saw them running toward her, her own eyes widened in shock. "Princesses!" she gasped. The girls crashed into her arms, hugging her tightly, sobbing into her uniform. "We missed you so much," Aina cried. "You didn't steal anything. We know it," Sophia shouted, her voice echoing. Dozens of people stopped to watch the scene unfold. A maid in her faded uniform, two wealthy twin girls clinging to her, and a man in a tailored suit approaching quickly with a woman at his side. It looked like a scene from a movie, and the audience was growing. Miguel's voice broke through the murmurs. "Julia!" He stopped in front of her, his face conflicted, his eyes full of guilt. How have you been?" Before she could answer, Estella stepped forward, her smile as sharp as glass. "Well, isn't this a coincidence?" she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Running into our ex-maid here." But the twins spun around, their voices loud enough for everyone to hear. "She's not a thief," Aina shouted. "We know the truth, Daddy." "We heard Estella say she planted the bracelet in Julia's closet," Sophia declared. The food court went silent. People gasped. Heads turned. Phones were lifted, recording. Estella's smile froze. Her eyes darted wildly as a wave of whispers spread through the crowd. And Miguel stood frozen, staring at his daughters, his heart pounding in disbelief. The trap had been set, and the whole world was watching. The air in the food court felt electrified. Conversations died. Trays clattered onto tables as strangers leaned closer, eager not to miss a word. Miguel's heart pounded in his chest. His daughters stood trembling but defiant, their little voices carrying more truth than any courtroom. "Girls," he began carefully, his voice low. "What did you just say?" Aina's chin lifted bravely. "We heard Aunt Estella on the phone. She said she put the bracelet in Julia's closet." Sophia's eyes blazed with fury. She laughed about it. "She said you believed her right away." The crowd gasped in unison. Dozens of eyes turned to Estella. Phones recorded, cameras zoomed in. Estella's face drained of color. "That's ridiculous," she snapped, forcing a laugh. "They're children with overactive imaginations. Miguel, you're really going to believe them over me?" But Aina didn't flinch. "Then why weren't you surprised when we found the bracelet?"
Sophia stepped forward. "You weren't sad, you were angry."
"Like you already knew it was there." Miguel's gaze snapped to Estella. For the first time, her mask began to crack. He saw the sweat glistening at her temple, the twitch at the corner of her mouth. "Estella?" His voice was sharp now, commanding. "Is this true? Did you frame Julia?" "No," she cried, too quickly. "How dare you accuse me after all these years of friendship? I've stood by your side for a decade, and now you believe a maid and two children?" Her voice rose, shrill, drawing more stares. The whispers in the crowd grew louder. She set her up. "Poor girl, look at the maid crying. What kind of woman does that?" Julia stood frozen, her hands trembling as Aina and Sophia clung to her. She wanted to disappear, but the twins wouldn't let her. Sophia's small voice cut through the chaos. "Daddy, look at her. She's lying. You know she is." Aina tugged his sleeve desperately. "Please believe us. Believe Julia." Miguel's world spun. Memories crashed into him. Julia bandaging Aina's scraped knee. Julia singing the twins to sleep when fevers kept them awake. Julia smiling softly while serving breakfast. Always loyal. Always kind. And then Estella's voice again, shrieking now. Of course she seemed kind. That's how women like her trap men like you. Don't you see? She doesn't belong in your world, Miguel. The food court erupted in gasps. Estella had just said out loud what everyone suspected. Her cruelty, her jealousy, her prejudice laid bare. Miguel's jaw tightened. For the first time in years, he looked at Estella not as an old friend, but as a stranger. A dangerous one. "Enough," he said, his voice cold as steel. "This ends now." The crowd fell into total silence. Every phone was raised. Every eye was fixed on him. The silence in the food court was deafening. Every pair of eyes, strangers, shoppers, children clutching ice cream cones, all were fixed on the scene unfolding before them. Miguel's voice cut through the tension, sharp and unwavering. "Estella, answer me. Did you plant that bracelet in Julia's closet?" Estella's mouth opened and closed, her face pale under the harsh lights. She looked around, cornered by the stares of dozens of strangers holding up their phones. Her hand shook, but her pride forced her to lash out. "Fine," she spat. "Yes, I did it. I had to. That girl doesn't belong in our lives. She's a maid, Miguel, a nobody. And you," her finger pointed at Julia, trembling with fury, "you dared to steal their affection from me after everything I've given this family." The crowd gasped. Murmurs swelled like a rising tide. She admitted it. What a monster. Poor maid. Estella's confession was out, echoing across the tiled walls for everyone to hear. There was no taking it back. Ana and Sophia clung tighter to Julia, their little voices fierce. "See, Daddy? We told you. She lied. Julia never stole anything." Julia trembled, her tears falling silently. She tried to hush them, whispering, "Don't cry, my loves. It's enough." But the twins wouldn't stop. Miguel's eyes locked on Estella, eyes once filled with trust, now hardened with betrayal. 10 years of friendship," he said slowly, every word a blade, "destroyed by your lies. Get out, Estella, and don't ever come near my family again." Estella froze, her mouth hanging open. "Miguel, wait," but the crowd booed, voices rising in disgust. "Shame on you. How cruel. Get out." Humiliated, Estella spun on her heels and stormed out, her heels clicking furiously against the floor as the crowd parted like water. Some people even recorded her exit, their jeers following her until she disappeared. When the noise faded, Miguel turned, and his gaze fell on Julia. She stood trembling, her uniform damp with the twins' tears, her face streaked with pain and disbelief. "Julia." His voice cracked. He took a step closer. I don't know how to ask forgiveness for what I did. I doubted you when I should have defended you. I let you suffer because I was blind." Julia shook her head quickly, her pride battling her tears. "You don't need to, sir. You were deceived like everyone else. What matters is your daughters. They need you strong." But before Miguel could reply, Sophia's small voice rang out loud and clear. "Daddy, stop calling her the maid. She's family." Ana tugged his sleeve, her eyes shining with tears. "She's the one who loves us. She's the one who makes us feel safe. We want her back." The crowd murmured in agreement. Some even clapped softly. Miguel's chest ached, the weight of truth pressing down on him. Slowly, he turned to Julia, his eyes searching hers. "I don't want you to go back to being just the maid," he said quietly, but the words carried. "I want you to stay, with us, with me, as part of our family." Julia's heart raced. Her tears blurred her vision. "Miguel, I don't belong in your world." But before he could answer, Ana stomped her little foot and shouted, "Then we'll change the world, because we need you, Julia. Daddy needs you, and we're not taking no for an answer." The crowd erupted in warm applause, their faces glowing with emotion. Phones caught every second as Miguel stepped closer, his hands trembling. "Julia, will you give us a chance? Will you give me a chance?" Her breath caught. She looked at the twins' hopeful faces, their little hands gripping hers, and then at Miguel's eyes, not the eyes of a wealthy man, but of a father, a man broken by love and guilt, pleading for forgiveness. Slowly she nodded. Yes. The food court exploded into cheers. Ana and Sophia squealed with joy, hugging Julia so tightly she almost lost her balance. Miguel pulled her into his arms, and when their lips met in a tender kiss, the crowd clapped louder, some even wiping tears from their eyes. At that moment, the world didn't see a maid and a millionaire. They saw a family being born. Months later, the church bells rang on a quiet Sunday morning. Julia walked down the aisle in a simple but elegant gown, her father Joe at her side, tears of pride in his tired eyes. At the altar, Miguel waited, his gaze filled with love. Ana and Sofia, dressed as flower girls, tossed white petals along the aisle, their giggles filling the church with joy. When the vows were spoken and Miguel kissed his bride, the twins shouted from the front pew, "We forbid you to ever be unhappy." The entire church erupted in laughter and applause. And in that moment, surrounded by love, Julia realized the truth. Sometimes, it takes the courage of children to teach adults how to fight for what really matters. As for Estella, she vanished after her public humiliation, her name whispered only as a cautionary tale. But Ana and Sofia never forgot the lesson. Those who plant lies, they would say, will always harvest shame. And they were right.